Welcome to the WPAOG Podcast. Our guest today is Matthew Caldwell, West Point class of 2002 and newly appointed CEO of the NBA's Minnesota Timberwolves and WNBA's Minnesota Lynx. Matt served 5 years as a U.S. Army captain, where he conducted combat operations in Iraq, led peacekeeping operations in Kosovo. Matt is accepting his new role with Minnesota following over a decade with the Florida Panthers, where he served as CEO and led the team to 2 Stanley Cup victories in 2 years. Please enjoy this episode with our host, Jamie Enos.
Matt, thanks so much for coming on the WPAOG Podcast. It is so great to see you again. Last time I saw you, you were here up at West Point, bringing back the Stanley Cup for the second time. For the listeners that don't know you, you spent over a decade with the Florida Panthers, and 2 cups in back-to-back years is an incredible feat. And now you're a resident out in Minnesota. A little bit of a weather change for you, but exciting times on the horizon for you.
I really appreciate the invite. Opportunity came knocking, and when life comes at you fast, you have to jump on it. So I'm now the CEO of the Minnesota Timberwolves and Minnesota Lynx, NBA and WNBA team. Very excited about this recent development.
You've experienced leadership in both military and entrepreneurial settings. What lessons translate most directly between the two?
Yeah, absolutely. I think leadership, comes down to inspiring people. The more you could set a culture where people are excited to come to work every day, especially in entrepreneurial environments when you're trying to sell a product, you're trying to launch a business, people have to, they're going to put in very long hours and a lot of hard work, and they're going to look to the leader in front of them. And your body language, your attitude every day, it's like being back in the military. Your soldiers are watching you day in, day out to kind of take their cue of how they're going to act that day. So it's a lot of it's about leading by example, but also giving the inspiration to people, around you.
Yeah. Matt, let's talk about how creating a winning culture. What are some elements that you bring to the table when you do that?
Listen, at first it starts with having very strong alignment of the people in your organization. So, in a sports team example, you have an owner of the team, or sometimes you have several owners. You have your CEO who's typically overseeing the business side. You have, a general manager or president of team operations. And this could be in basketball, it could be in hockey, football, any sport. And the way the owner and the CEO and the head of the team side get along and how they're aligned on, how we're going to operate every single day is paramount. If the GM is operating at a certain tempo and the CEO is trying to do something else, players are going to feel that, coaches are going to feel that, sales reps, marketing people. So it all comes down to alignment. I'm not saying that the CEO and general manager and the owner have to agree on everything, but those kind of discussions have to happen behind closed doors. But once you walk outside that door, everyone has to be aligned at the end of the day. So that's something that we stressed at the Florida Panthers. It's something that I'm already stressing here at the Minnesota Timberwolves. That's what brings the level of excellence that you need for a culture. And you're not going to win every game. You're not going to win every sale. You're not going to win every marketing campaign, but having that expectation of a high level of excellence is paramount.
And how do you think that was built when you were here at West Point? What do you think those foundation blocks did when you first got here at West Point, and then your 4 years here and then into your Army career? What did you take from this experience and take that into your professional?
Yeah, and listen, West Point's all about managing the ups and downs, right? You're 4 years there. There might be more downs than ups sometimes. It's a very challenging place. You're young at the time, and you may be saying to yourself, why am I getting up early? Why do I have all these classes? Why do I have all these activities? But it builds your character long term. And everything I learned at West Point around leadership, around, taking orders, following people, as a freshman, they teach you that you have to learn how to follow before you can lead. And that's very important because you need to know how your soldiers or your employees, how they be inside their heads, that when you're a lieutenant or you're leading, a certain business line, it's important to know, their mindset and have an empathy for how they operate day to day. So the West Point experience was absolutely foundational to what I do every day. I didn't realize it at the time. I never imagined I'd be a CEO of a sports organization, but the critical foundation blocks were so important and built at West Point.
2 Stanley Cups, right? But that doesn't come easily. That comes with failure. So how did you overcome those obstacles to get to the highest pinnacle of your career?
Yeah, it all comes down to grit. When the Viola family purchased the team, we were the worst team on the ice. We were the worst team off the ice. We were last in the standings of all 30 teams at the time. And we had nobody in the stands. So the only way was to go up from there. But there was definitely a lot of dark days in the beginning. It took us several years to get the right general manager in place, the right coach in place, the right players. And it's not as easy as just like spending a lot of money and just bringing in the best people. You have to, get people that are going to align with your culture. They're going to be okay with an owner and myself. They're going to ask a lot of questions, and we're very attention to detail oriented. So it took us several years to get going, but turnarounds are never easy. We went from like the worst team in the league to kind of middle of the pack pretty quickly. And we thought, oh, wow, we might have success right away, but going from good to great is 10 times harder. And, we noticed that, by our second or third season, we were winning and we were in playoff contention, but, it took us until I think like year 7 or 8 of the Viola ownership to be consistently making the playoffs. We also got to the Stanley Cup final first and lost to Bill Foley, another West Point graduate, Golden Eights. And that was tough. Like again, almost to the top of the mountain, and to lose that deep in the playoffs. But I was so proud of our players to be able to respond the following 2 years and win back-to-back championships. But if we didn't believe in each other and we didn't have the perseverance to get through some of those dark years, and then even, losing in the finals, our culture could have cracked and, fell apart at any time during that journey.
Yeah, the resiliency, right? That's what I'm hearing here, that theme of just going through the organization. And do you think that's coming through the top down of that leadership? And what is that messaging then through the organization to make sure that your staff is staying on board and staying with the program and buying in when you are in those ebbs and flows of the swells of, oh my goodness, this isn't fun. Losing sucks, right? It sucks, right? But you learn a lot through losing, and you learn, and then you appreciate the wins, right? So how do you get that buy-in when it isn't going well?
Listen, it all starts at the top. It starts with the Viola family. Vinny Viola, West Point graduate, was fully committed to bringing a Stanley Cup to South Florida. It had never been done with the Florida Panthers, and his conviction and his just commitment, both financially, but then also day to day and with the community, was paramount. And then I'm the person on the ground. Vinny's the owner, and he's got various business interests, but I was, his representative and was the CEO on the ground. But it can't just stop at the two of us. We have an organization of 300 full-time employees and over 1,000 part-time employees. So creating that good middle management, finding a great leader on the hockey operations side or basketball side that's aligned and has respect for the CEO and the owner, because all that trickles down, right? So getting the right coach and the players that are bought in and are committed to, building this destination franchise, as we call it in Florida Panther land. Everyone's got to feel it, from the janitor to the sales rep to, the minor league players. Everyone's got to feel that we're all rowing in the same direction. So it starts at the top. You got to make sure you get people at the middle management level that are, preaching the culture every day.
Yeah. So significant mentors and leaders within the Long Gray line. I mean, outside of Vinny, I would assume you're going to, probably drop as number one, but who else in the Long Gray line that you've called on for support and help along your journey?
Yeah. When I got out of the military, I went to graduate school, and then I landed a job at Goldman Sachs, and right away it was the West Point partners and managing directors that were there. So Gary Giglio, Gerard O'Connor were phenomenal to me. I would say peers, people that I went to school with, Chris Boggiano, Jonathan Munkin, Jonathan Algord. These were best friends of mine, class of 2002. I've watched them in their respective careers. They teach you at West Point that peer leadership and people to your left and right are sometimes just as important as the older grads, if you will. So I've been blessed to have people out of me, in class here, people to my, my classmates. They've all been just great examples to me, and I've been able to take parts of their leadership and implement it to what I've been doing day to day. Brad Harrison as well, who I was hoping to be speaking to, who's been a great mentor to me, especially in the investment world. So, the West Point grads, they always pick up the phone. They're always there for you. Yeah,
we've heard that time and time again, right? No West Point grad has never really not been there to answer that call when you need that support and that help. So always glad to hear when that is another story going forward with that. Anything entrepreneur style that has happened to you along your journey? Have you ever had that immediate, like, ooh, here's an idea I want to go chase down, or good idea fairy that's hit you and you're like, oh, let me try that?
Yeah. And that's been, especially within sports, the sports industry is somewhat young when you think about it. In the 70s, 80s, 90s, there was sports teams that were owned by a few owners or a group of owners, but really in these like last 15, 20 years, the industry is really taken off and organizations have become much more professional. So for example, with the Florida Panthers, one of the things we did early on is, in addition to selling tickets and sponsorship and obviously trying to win games on the ice, Vinny has a great entrepreneurial spirit around what are the other services that are happening in an arena. So when you go to a game and the food and beverage that you purchase, your parking experience, going to the retail store, buying jerseys. Typically sports teams outsource all those services because there's so much to do day to day with the team itself that, these other companies that have more experience in these areas would run, some of the ancillary services that I just mentioned. So we took that in-house. We created our own companies to run the food and beverage, to run the parking, to run the retail, because our thought was, those are touch points with our fans, right? And if someone has a bad parking experience and they're mad at the parking rep, they don't want to deal with like some outside vendor. They're going to yell at the Panthers. So if we're going to get in trouble for, the parking experience or how the hot dogs taste or how the beer tastes, we might as well be responsible for it. So, we launched several businesses within the Panthers umbrella to, be entrepreneurial, but also have our hands on, the touch points with our fans.
So congratulations on your new role. I don't even know if I started off with that. I'm sorry, maybe we did that off record here, but congratulations with your new role out in Minnesota. That's really exciting. We are here to support you and follow you along with that. Can you give us a little bit of insight of what we can expect out there, how to follow you, and what's going to be happening out there?
I'll tell you, listen, the playbook is very similar, right? We're here to win championships and raise revenue. I call it revenue and rings. I'm very fortunate they already have a great general manager and head coach on the basketball side. We have brand new ownership that's very motivated, and the team's been pretty good. They've been to the Western Conference Finals the last 2 years. They made the playoffs 4 straight years. So that's already rowing, in the right direction. And I'm here to get the business side, on par with the basketball side. So sell out our tickets, sell out our sponsorships, get big brands in the building. The ownership has talked about building a new arena. It's on public record. So that'll be something I'll be exploring as well. Because ultimately, we're here to win championships, but we also want to give great experience to the fans. And it is one of the older arenas in the NBA. So, exploring that process and hopefully building a brand new arena will be great for the fan base.
Matt, you've had a lot of pivots, right? I mean, West Point, obviously Army service, after that, Goldman Sachs, into sports, Florida, now going out to Minnesota, even geographically, right? So Army veterans, that's the life, right? Pivoting, kind of rolling with it. What's your advice? What's your feedback for that and kind of that transition moment?
Yeah, it's one of these like balances you have to play where you want to keep the things that worked for you at West Point in the Army. You want to keep those like bedrock, leadership principles, but you also have to adapt to new situations, right? So most recently for me, we finally built the Panthers up to this great championship team. We just won 2 Stanley Cups. I think most people, including myself, were like, hey, let's ride this out and let's see how many more we can win. And let's see how long we can possibly, build this dynasty. But when opportunity comes knocking, sometimes you have to jump on it. And if you're too close-minded or maybe complacent, maybe I wouldn't have explored this, but at the same time, I love challenges and I've been loving the sports career. I've had a lot of, a good number of career change pivots. Some might say, I don't know what I want to do with my life. But it just came down to focusing on the 50-meter target, working hard, being present in what's in front of you, but also looking over the horizon, what else is out there. And once I decided to get out of the military, I wanted to pursue the finance investment world. I loved being at Goldman. I thought I'd be there for the rest of my career, but then I met Vinny Viola and he gave me the opportunity to come to his family office. I could have stayed at Goldman and had a great career, but I thought my career trajectory would just be great under Vinny. I had no idea that he was going to have a sports team for me to run, but I went with my gut and I followed him. And now after, almost 10 years with the Panthers as the CEO, again, I could have stayed in that role for more time, but sports is where it's at. It's where I want to be for the rest of my career. And to have a team that has new ownership, that's very hungry to join the NBA, which is a massive global platform, and also to do, somewhat of a turnaround, at least on the business side. I just thought that I wanted to jump on that challenge. So, be open to new ideas, be open to what's out there. Don't change who you are, be authentic, and be honest with yourself on how you like to operate every day, but be open to new challenges in front of you.
Yeah. Well, Matt, we will be following you from here at your Rock Down Highland home out in Minnesota as you take on both the NBA and the WNBA. And we look for you bringing back that champion trophy again. You brought it back here twice with Florida. So we'll look for those for basketball. And thank you so much for being on the WPAOG podcast. Before we hang up here, I do want to give you the opportunity one more time to give any closing remarks.
Well, yeah, in closing, everyone, really, really thankful and grateful that I could be here with you all. I wish I could be there in person. This was wonderful. I was planning to be there up until a couple weeks ago. But thanks again for having me, and I wish you all the best. Beat Navy!
Thank you for listening to the WPAOG Broadcast Network. Please take a moment to rate and review the show and subscribe to automatically get updates on a new episode. Thank you for listening.